What's up, everybody? Welcome to Solana Weekly. This is your host, Thomas, and I want to thank you for joining in. Let's take a dive into the latest trends, use cases, and people behind the incredible growth of the Solana ecosystem. None of this is financial advice, but I'm hoping that all of this is alpha. Now let's get to the show. We've got Luca on from Ambient, and I am super excited to hear about everything that they're doing with DePIN and air quality sensors. So I'm really excited about this. I've got some personal stories that I want to bring up about it. But welcome to the show, Luca. How are you doing today?
And great to be here, Thomas. Doing well. Busy as always, as you can imagine. Lots going on, but excited to be here.
Yeah. I'm super excited to have you. Your project is one that I came across and was like, hey, this is something that is an awesome use of crypto. It's on Solana. It's combining sensors. It's aggregating data from individuals or businesses that are buying them. I just feel like there is so much to talk about here. Do you want to tell us about Ambient? Tell us what it is, how it got started?
Sure thing. So first of all, Ambient is the only environmental DePIN on Solana backed by Solana. So that's, a great position to start with already. And
Yeah.
we're disrupting how these environmental sensing networks are created out in the more traditional world. Because like many other DePINs, we're really going after, this sort of infrastructure specific around, in this case, starting with anyway, air quality monitoring networks. Because in any one given city, you may have a handful of sensors. And we have the advantage through the incentives and the network, that we've created the model to create the hundreds, if not thousands more, capturing hyper local information to give you accurate, real world readings of what's happening at the ground level. Things that even the satellite, Copernicus and a few other systems that track weather conditions, are not able to pick up. And so when you're able to combine that data, naturally, you're able to truly see what's happening on the ground.
Yeah.
In building Ambient, we see this as an opportunity to not only build a sustainable, deep empowered business, but also as a way to deliver blockchain for impact, which we feel is really important as we see what's happening all around us, as certain programs are being defunded, as conditions around the world are affecting millions, with recent pollution events that we've seen across India lasting for weeks, or Los Angeles wildfires and so on. So we believe not only is it very important to get the message out and to get more participants on board, but to also help solve some of the issues that we're facing.
Yeah. I feel like it's such a cool concept. Even if you take out the, crypto part of it, getting data directly from people, knowing exactly where that data is coming from and having it be up to date is awesome. And then on top of that, people are going to be rewarded. So they're incentivized to actually do it and make sure that they're actually sending data, make sure that their sensors are up to date. And I mean, the people that are doing it benefit not only from, being rewarded from it, but they get to know what's going on in their own air, right?
Yeah,
I feel like
personally.
that's huge.
That's right, personally. And today, of course, when you lay out any such infrastructure, if in a more traditional sense, it takes a certain amount of capital and resources, and that's why the deployments are quite disparate and far few in between, even in major metropolitan centers. There's some initiatives that have pushed the envelope there, but typically from a philanthropic kind of angle. And here, there's opportunity for everyday participants, but also we have a big B2B community to actually take that matter in their own hands, to be able to get those readings, both for outdoor and indoor, to learn from it, to see what makes a difference, because it does, again, impact us all, especially when we spend a lot of our time indoor. How do you optimize that? How do you stay fresh, and so on? But also, there's in more polluted geographies, there's significant health impacts that we can fight against. And so once you start to learn about it, once you start to measure it, naturally, but we do turn the model on its head, and really, again, community driven, but also to the discussions that we're having with the weather industry. It's how do you build the right density where, right? How you're able to ultimately provide or create value for the network. And so by working with the weather industry to identify the metropolitan centers, for example, that are most important, or where readings are missing. And so to create those super X's, if you will, where we can give, additional incentives to quickly populate those areas and ultimately deliver value, not only for the data buyers, but also for our network, because then that turns into revenues and tokens being bought and so on. So it does create that flywheel effect that ultimately we do need to create for everybody to benefit across the network.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And you can really see it based on, how you actually track your weather, right? So, if you're like, I'm in California, and if I look at my weather, I look at my iPhone, right? And I look at the weather on there. I live in a little bit of a smaller town, so there are no direct sensors in my town. They don't actually take the right weather. I don't even know where they get it from, but it's typically wrong, right? And in there is some air quality data in there, but we saw some fires near us a couple of years back, and we would check the air quality. So it wasn't accurate in the Apple app, and I think there was an app that we would look at, like Purple Air or something
Yep.
along those lines, which wasn't even always that updated either. So we could walk outside, smell smoke, you feel terrible after walking, 100 yards or whatever, and the app would be saying that the air quality is clear. So there is a problem with, at least that I've seen personally, with, what data I'm seeing and what I'm actually seeing outside.
And that's inherent to the models being used, because what you see on Google, what you see on Apple comes from Google anyway, or a number of different sources. There isn't a single truth,
Yeah.
and what we're trying to create is this first party data network that
Yeah.
ultimately gives you the ultimate truth. But what you see on Google is based on AI approximation. So they take the sensors that are closest to you or in your area more generally, but they may be miles away, and
Yeah.
they'll approximate based on the next few other sensors. So now this is clearly missing a number of hyper local events that are happening, and conditions that are not monitored, that are not understood, and that as everyday participants we also want to get on top of. So
Yeah.
so it does make a difference to increase that density. Now, of course, typically commercially, it's more valuable in the more population kind of the dense areas.
Yeah.
But there's also opportunities to create elsewhere that same model.
Yeah. And so with that, like say there is, an area where you want more data, is that something where you guys can incentivize those areas a little bit more, in order for people to, provide more sensors in a specific place, or how does that work?
100%. So
Yeah.
we started off with the revised tokenomics that we launched kind of end of last year, included capturing new hexagons just so that we could get additional coverage.
Okay.
But to give the folks that install and deploy sensors in new areas that are currently not covered, of course, additional rewards. But now we're about to introduce our new outdoor sensor, which is really exciting, really kind of low priced open source device that captures great data, that goes above and beyond what Air does, which is only for particles, and
Hmm.
capture a number of other gases. And so it will give us great data. But for that device to come out, we also want to create the most impact, which will be, how do we target the top cities globally? Because we know that, for example, with the same temperature readings, there is an entire weather commodities market,
Yeah.
that
Oh
that
yeah. Yeah.
naturally, tracks temperature across these major cities. There's also a number of other kind of data demands that we've received from data buyers of wanting greater density and coverage and whatnot. The specific use cases around measuring wildfire, for example, from Canada across the East Coast and to Philadelphia. And so
Yeah.
today we may have, let's say, 100 sensors in any one of those areas, but having that greater density will provide significant more commercial value for the network. And so that's where we'll be creating these special pockets of additional rewards as we roll out the new sensor, because that's where the biggest commercial value will be. So exciting to be able to. We're just now thinking, okay, what are the key centers from a data purchasing perspective, but also from the other initiatives that we're seeing but at least with a focus initially on Europe and North America. And
Yeah.
then there's a number of other international cities that are, of course, already being targeted as areas where monitors should be, more dense and available.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, currently, is it only indoor sensor that you guys have, and then the outdoor is going to be released soon? Is that?
So we actually already have both indoor and outdoor,
Oh, you do? Okay.
mainly because we acquired a network last year. So we acquired an existing project called Planet Watch, and we migrated that network over from Algorand to our Solana tech stack that we developed over the summer.
Okay.
And so that was challenge number one, addressing the legacy network that we brought in,
Mhm.
but also because they had an established community, an established base of sensors already deployed across a number of markets. And so what we're doing is we're using that as the basis to grow to the next level, starting with air quality, expanding the network, but then looking at complementary metrics. So things that again we've identified through our commercial discussions with the weather industry, but noise and light pollution, pollen and allergens, even visibility for airports and airlines, and a number of other use cases that we'll eventually get to. But today, the mission is how do we, make the create the most value from the existing data that we're capturing with the existing sensors before we, at some point, later this year, and we already have manufacturers working on this, but how do we then create that all singing and dancing sensor that will give us, at the very least, air quality, noise, and light,
Yeah.
all within this one device? Because then not only can it be used for outdoor, but it can also be used from a retail perspective indoor. So, today you can go on Google, you see how busy is a place, but you have no idea, what the air quality may be, especially more polluted areas. Again, geographies that's of relevance, but also what the noise levels are real time, how the light, the natural light is there. So we believe that could also drive additional models, APIs based models that could be available across every cafe, restaurant, and gym that you may go to. So, the reality is that today it's purely an outdoor market, and so we have 8,000 devices that are on our network today. 3,000 of them are outdoor. The rest are indoor. Now, the focus for 2025, especially with new device coming online, where we'll have access to some 15,000, units, is squarely to focus on increasing the coverage and increasing the density, especially across these special areas.
Oh, that's awesome. So 8,000 units already deployed that's a pretty good amount. So with that, like you guys are probably able to already pull pretty good data from that, right?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
through the network acquisition that we made, we have 20 billion data streams that have
Oh,
been
no way.
stored to date. And that data goes back to 2021. So it's, not only do we have live data across, of course, where these sensors are, and that's what we're starting to sell as well, in the coming weeks with an environmental data marketplace. But the next conversations that we're having as well are with major weather names that are more interested in actually the historic data is more valuable because it can help them improve their models. And so we're packaging that up in different ways. Well, we've been thinking about how do we then structure that from a municipality or city-based perspective to acquire both historic data and live data to make our APIs more, on demand and more easily purchasable. So there's a number of things that we'll be doing, but I think the core of it is because we ingest raw data, we calibrate it, and then we output raw data via our APIs today, that the weather industry slash environmental data industry is best placed to, normalize that data, to repackage that data, and to address it for their needs. But then there is a number of other verticals and opportunities that we'll be pursuing.
Amazing. So, oh, that's awesome. And especially, I feel like with the rise of like all the big data and machine learning, it's like they want all of those parameters, right? They want the big data set numbers. And with that, they can pull a lot more analysis out of that and make better predictions or see what's going on, right?
100%. This is also a really interesting narrative that's come out that we're actually starting to already execute on. But the fact that, DePIN captures real world information naturally, especially with these hardware devices out there in the world. And AI has hit a data wall, right? They're talking about creating synthetic data to train
Yeah, yeah.
the artificial intelligence, whereas we can actually plug in and deliver that, in real time. So now that's there will be a number of announcements coming out
Cool.
around how we're becoming a data layer for the AI platforms that will power the agents of tomorrow, if you will.
Cool.
And then you can imagine all sorts of use cases, of course, from a forecasting perspective, but personal recommendations to I'm traveling there tomorrow. What can you tell me? And all sorts of I think of use cases that will be part of these experiences that will go live in the coming months.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and you think of like where all of these companies are currently getting their data to provide air quality, they're paying for all that data. So it's, I think we were even looking at like Zillow not too long ago. And on there,
Mm,
you look at different neighborhoods and, the value increases if the air quality is better, right? Like
that's right.
that plays into how people are buying houses, that plays into where people are going to go. So that's incredibly, invaluable information that people are paying for, right?
Yeah, and we see that as well, and we're having those discussions with the property platforms out there because it is relevant. It does impact purchases. People want to know about it. There's a lot more awareness, of course, out there between consumers and also businesses that may need to meet certain regulatory standards.
Yeah.
It does affect us, where we work, where we play, and so it's very important, especially again with these events that continue to happen. Having lived in California myself, in the Bay Area, and being affected by the wildfires, and also again in places like India, where I've had a number of discussions recently. We'll be deploying over 1,000 devices, in the coming months.
Right.
It's impacting us all. So I think it's very important to address it in a way that we can, first of all, measure it and then improve it. Because you can imagine with the rewards that we'll be providing our participants, there's then opportunities to create marketplaces where, of course, I can do a far better discount, on air purifiers in bulk, and provide that, 4 points for rewards for those that are effective. And so, how do we not just help monitor these conditions, but then over time also help them solve?
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I think I feel like India is especially top of mind. I think it was like Brian Johnson on Twitter recently went to India for a
Yes, I saw that.
podcast. He was wearing an N95 mask in like one of the most expensive hotels with tons of air quality, like tons of like air quality, fixers. And like he had to leave the interview halfway through because he couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
So I think that brought some awareness, right? Like it came up and it seemed like that was, I don't know, at least it reached me with, one of like the big air quality issues that we have, right?
100%. I mean, it's been going on for some time already, and actually reached to the Kamas family that actually was on that podcast. To see what could be done there as well, considering that we're already starting to target India as one of our next markets, and it is a big issue there. Maybe a bit too much of a sensitivity from Brian there, but ultimately, people take that for granted again, and
Yeah.
unless you know what's happening, then you won't take a second look. But people die, millions of people die because of air quality conditions globally,
Yeah.
and it affects all sorts of health issues, births, and there is a way to minimize that. But also recent studies show that most of Europe unknowingly was well above WHO standards from an air quality perspective, and so it may not be
Oh,
as
really?
bad as India, but then over time it's clearly again impacting the environments where we are. So if from a city perspective, from a planning perspective, well, how do you start to put out the various sensors so that you're able to monitor conditions and then create policies to improve that air quality? but also, if you are, again, as most of us are indoor at some point, most of the day, then how do you improve those conditions indoor, yeah, especially at home, where your family may be, or where we may be working out of, or the office space, and minimize those impacts. So clearly, something that we can do something about.
Yeah, and as far as like me personally, so my wife has like pretty bad asthma,
Mm,
and it's seasonal based on it's like allergies kind of make it worse. And we live basically on a vineyard, right?
mm,
So certain times of the year, there's pollen in the air. The direction of the wind is just right at our house. So I think it was last year, she actually ended up getting pneumonia a couple times from this. So, we've got air purifiers all throughout the house. We
I
do
can
what we
imagine.
can.
Yeah.
We almost moved because of it. But I ended up buying one of your sensors because I was like, hey, I couldn't even find a sensor as thorough as the one that you guys offer, right? So
The Katerra, yeah.
yeah, so it doesn't only just measure like, all right, yeah, there's something in the air. It tells you what's in the air as well, right?
No, 100%. There's a number of gases that, yeah, again, we all don't know, but these could be, created from a number of things, from the chemicals being used to clean around the house.
Yep,
And we've
yep.
seen, in cases where, for example, a school was using, again, certain chemicals that would stay in the air, even the next day or two while the kids were still in the school. And so, yeah, there's a whole policy you can shift around. While the cleaning needs to be done at the end of the week using more natural products that are not going to affect as much the environment, but all the way to the example that you were giving about your wife. I mean, allergens cause issues to millions of people, and so to understand when these are happening real time is massive, right? And there's a whole kind of community around this as well of that takes this data from, again, a few sensors that are out there, because they're also still quite expensive. But we've had discussions with these device manufacturers because it's a similar issue, and it also creates a massive opportunity with the pharma industry, because then they know when to stock that medicine,
Yep.
that affects those affected. And so there is a number of these environmental issues that we can bring under our umbrella uh, to create, if you will, almost like a multi DePIN network, where you're creating different layers for different use cases, and then over time to actually create on top of it all an analytics, insight and decision making layer, and for that to actually be the destination to consume all this data across the different sensors that we've introduced in our ecosystem.
Yeah.
And of course, that kind of creates a different dynamic even with the tokenomics, because then it's more of a living, economic model where it does need to be dynamic and to update accordingly on where the value is coming from the network and so on. But that's, I think, something that most projects will need to ultimately adapt to what conditions make are best for the value of the network, and how to make it work in a way so that everybody again benefits from performing token, and attractive rewards to justify naturally sensor ownership and so on. But today it's a starting point where we do have a clear opportunity, a market that we've identified, and a number of additional verticals that we can go after.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. There's a saying that I like is, what gets measured gets managed. Right. So if, say in our instance, the vineyard managers farming the vineyard, they don't want to be sending chemicals over to a
Mm,
house.
yep.
That's an unintended consequence if that's what they are doing. Right. Like I'm not even saying that they are. But if that was the case, they're not trying to do that, but we can't measure it right now, right? And with something like a sensor, we could say, hey, on, you know, this night, and this night, the air quality was really bad. It had, these specific chemicals were in it. What were you guys spraying at this time? Let's look at adjusting that, right? Because even though they're organic, even though they have good intentions, that doesn't necessarily mean that what they're doing is right or what they're doing is
Yep.
good and it's not harmful. And I like that there's the outdoor versus the indoor as well, because we could catch what's going on outdoor. And then we could also have one, on the inside and see, hey, are we cleaning the air enough? Do we need to air the house out, or what's going on? I feel like there's so many ways that I personally see value from it.
Right? To be able to compare, the outdoor conditions with the indoor conditions, to be able to optimize them. And again, as much as the market commercially may be more around, outdoor today, there's also a significant opportunity from a research perspective to look at what's happening at a aggregate level across, the thousands of households and offices that we have access to, because we know that some of them, as we recently announced, we have 1,000 sensors across a number of franchisees like KFC, Taco Bell, Five Guys, and so on, which is massive win for us and for the whole, DePIN space. But what do you do with that data then, apart from operationally, of course, how they can use those readings across multiple sites and real time and whatnot? But it's about then, I think, from a research perspective or from a consumer perspective, how you expose some of that data. And of course, Taco Bell wouldn't necessarily be keen on us exposing that data of every
Yeah.
one of their location, but from that, there is value, I think, in, exploring different ways, not only to help them improve, because that's what we do, like with the Best Western. We deployed a sensor in every room, the Best Western McCarran Inn in Las Vegas.
Hmm.
And the view is that not everybody, not anybody actually starts with good air quality, especially when you're next to the airport. But over time, you're able to identify, what you can do. And of course, it starts with replacing filters here, or, improving air filtration there, or ventilation in general. But then, what are the problem areas? What are the problem rooms, or where are things not updating as much as you like, or the conditions not improving? And so at least you're able to, create that benchmark and work up from there. But there's I think, a lot more value that we can derive from making even the indoor data available. Just like you can see across the Indian hotels, generally some of the higher end hotels, of course, are blasting air purifiers during the worst parts of the pollution season there. But they're also displaying, what the air quality is indoor versus outdoor. So it's seen as a differentiator from the hospitality industry, and one that I think needs to be certainly more pervasive, and consumers are definitely a lot more aware of it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and if you think of you're in like an organization, if you're in a Best Western or whatever the chain of hotels is, and you realize that you have bad air quality, you can test what works, right?
Yeah.
You can put together a standard operating procedure for, hey, across all of our units, we're no longer using this. We're changing air filters every 3 months. And I mean, that's something you can market if you actually had those numbers to show, saying, hey, all of our rooms are top 90% in air quality. And we test them daily. We test every single room and monitor that.
You're right, exactly right. And we've also started to explore, for example, that a lot of households don't replace their filters in their HVAC and ventilation systems. But here is an opportunity to actually, and there's some manufacturers that already do this today, but IoT integrated or LoRaWAN kind of connected filters that give you an idea also of when you need to replace them, because otherwise you can read, of course, with the air quality monitor, how the air is being degraded over time if the filters are not up to date. And so there's a number of again models that we can bring into the ecosystem to provide solutions for the participants, having measured their conditions, to also help solve some of these problems and address the cause, which hopefully again will make everybody feel and healthier, and be able to monitor that accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then the best part about that too, right? So they're able to see a ton of value from getting that data. right? They're able to manage any issues if there are any. Very well there might not be. Um, but they can also get rewarded on the back end for that, right? If
Yeah.
they're running all of these, they're actually receiving some tokens for actually providing that data if they choose to, right?
100%. Ultimately, we're deep in. There's that incentive to participate.
Yeah.
We're front running basically that infrastructure creation, but there's also a difference indoor because there isn't quite that commercial model yet, but gets lower grade rewards. But we also want people to have that awareness and to start with, well, here is how your conditions are in your house or in your office.
Yeah.
And typically we also see that, the same, participant that will purchases an indoor unit will also purchase an outdoor unit because they want to see that difference. And with the outdoor, naturally, you get the highest rewards and you help us, cover more geographies, capture new areas, increase that density and be able to pursue data sales again that will drive revenues back into the network. And here is the added bonus is because for everything we make from a data sale perspective, on top of the mining rewards that you already get just from having a sensor online, you'll be able to get, if you're the source of that data, that 30% revenue share of that deal. And
Oh, no
so
way.
not only are we burning 30% of the tokens that are coming in, the other 30% will be redistributed to the source of that data, and the rest will either be burned or reallocated for growth marketing initiatives. And so there is, a cherry on top for those that help us create that network.
Oh, that's amazing. So, wow. So if you are actually able to provide data that people are buying, you pretty much directly can get rewards through that. Uh,
100%. Yeah. On
That's
top of
awesome.
the daily mining rewards.
Oh, that's so
So
cool.
we do need to shout even more about that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I haven't looked into like how many rewards you get for it. Do you have like any rough idea? Like say you have an outdoor sensor and you plug it in, and you're sending data. Is it like you'll get some of that money. Obviously, you'll get some tokens back, but like, does it cover the cost of the unit? Is there any like target for that? I don't even know like what the values would be. Um, but if you could speak to that and or what the goal is with rewarding it, how you view it, I guess.
So I think let me speak about the new air quality sensor, outdoor sensor that will be coming out, because one of the critical things that we wanted to address was the initial purchasing price naturally. So to have something that was not only low cost, but of course gave us the metrics that we wanted,
Yeah.
but that also had a fast ROI. So we're talking about, and our token is not live yet, so I can give you
Yeah.
expectations, but ultimately with where we'll be launching the token, the idea is that it will have a 3 to 4 month ROI. I think we need to, across the board of the new devices that we'll be introducing, that really create that sort of dynamic. For outdoor, again, for indoor, because it's a slightly different market today, it may take a little bit longer. But the view is that it's a bit more educational. It's a benefit rather than, creating value for the network from a data sale perspective. And so we want to really incentivize that growth of the outdoor. And for that, there is a very specific focus on how quickly can we get you, to break even on that device and to benefit passively, to making sure that you can continue to provide data to the network, continue to have that device online, and possibly think about, let's launch even more devices.
Yeah.
That's part of the play, on that front. And will need to be for every new sensor that we introduce, unless we drastically change the model, because there's massive new commercial opportunities that we need to address. But that will probably be something to consider more for through governance, but through the new devices that we'll be introducing that are capturing new metrics.
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as the cost of the initial sensors, it's not necessarily, it's not a massive purchase like versus a normal sensor. Like it's almost in line with some of the other ones that we were looking at buying anyways.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, like there's so much cooler parts of it. Like I think DePIN is one of the coolest uses of crypto. It's just taking on the big competitors and it's so much better, right? Like there's so many advantages to you, to the network, to everyone, right?
And this is the interesting part is like you mentioned Purple Air, who I myself used when I was in the Bay Area,
Uh-huh.
looking up the air quality, around, where I was. But we reached out to them as well. We tried to, talk about possibly bringing them on board,
Yeah.
and figuring out a way to work together. But they weren't so keen on it. They were quite diffident on how we had structured the whole organization. Naturally, being a Web3
Yeah, yeah.
organization with the foundation, this and that, and like in the middle of the call, they were looking us up. So that was quite interesting. Traditional versus Web3,
Yeah.
but they only capture PM, so particles.
Yeah.
Where again, our devices, capture a lot more. They have what they call citizen scientists, the 30,000 or so, primarily across the U.S., but of device owners that are sending their data back to Purple Air, who then
Yeah.
resells it to over 200 organizations from a data subscription perspective. But doesn't give any of those rewards back, other than, of course, putting everything nicely on the map for everybody to look up. So
Yeah.
that's something that we'll clearly be targeting as well, because that's the old school model. They've been very successful,
Yeah.
and they've established great relationship. But we believe we can put a serious dent, and provide far more benefits, even to their existing users. So it'll be fun to execute on that strategy in 25.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that it will. And I love that this is it's kind of like Web3 businesses versus Web2. I feel like it's coming to a forefront in a lot of these DePIN companies like you guys, where you're just able to offer better data, a better experience for users, a better experience for anybody looking to contribute. It's all coming together right now is what it seems like. At least that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
So I love to hear it.
No, it's an exciting time, for sure. It's already a lot more, on top of everybody's minds. How these models are finally coming to their own. The beauty is that today we're just taking devices that are from existing manufacturers,
Mhm.
and sure, creating our own SKUs out of them with some minor, if any, modifications. But I think it will be even more exciting when later this year we're able to create our own form factor, our own device, that can act more as a bundle for other deepen projects. So imagine like the GeodeNet and WingBit's, a multi-miner approach. We've already had discussions with, both of those organizations, with Helium and with others. Now, of course, we'll be creating a LoRaWAN version of our outdoor sensor, because we want to use the Helium network, and then many other opportunities to join up forces, including a number of the other weather deepens, because they capture data that we don't capture, that we capture
Yeah.
data that they don't capture. But together, we've had data buyers, of course, tell us, "Oh, this is great, air quality data. We'd love to see that with rain or wind speeds as well, based on this historic period," and so on. So there's clearly going to be opportunities of projects of data sets coming together, and that's why we started to think about, and we announced this with Nubila, another weather deepen, but to create a weather and environmental deepen alliance, because there's truly, again, we're through the same sales channels that we're creating today,
Mhm.
to to rise with the tide, for all the deepen projects in this space, because we're clearly seeing the same challenges and the same opportunities. So we may as well join up forces on the data front.
I love that. I love that. Take on the big guys, join up. Oh, that's cool. One thing that you said earlier, so you acquired a network from Algorand. How was that process of bringing that over to Solana for you? Was there some pushback from the people that were actually collecting data? Was it like a big technical hurdle, or how'd that go?
No, all of those, I think the biggest challenge was probably making sure that we had the right incentive, well, the right communication and the right incentives for the community participants,
Mhm.
because we wanted to keep folks online, even with an underperforming token that we then, took a snapshot of and gave an allocation to the new token that
Mhm.
will, of course, be executed when we TGE. But there were all these intricate components of an existing network and how we had to adapt that to our future needs, especially how we wanted that to scale. And there continue to be, skeletons in the closet here and there from a technology debt
Yeah.
perspective, as much as a lot of it has been adapted or redeveloped. So, yeah, of course, it's always going to be easier starting your own project from scratch. And I've only heard of one other company that got in touch with me because they were exploring buying another project, and nobody else really. It does have its downsides, but the upside is that you're able to jumpstart this process with an existing network. And it took us, a few months to get underway, but at the end of last year, where we had already started, the migration. So the hardest part was, having to, keep silent until we had enough of a plan that we
Yeah.
were confident in to then communicate to the rest of the community. And so people asking, "Oh, what's going on with this and that?" And but then, once we started that out, once we laid out the roadmap, and we really tried to stick to it as much as possible, and we were able to deliver against that, folks understood that this was, a proper turnaround and an opportunity to be part of something bigger.
Yep.
And so now that we've been a few months in, of course, everybody's asking when token, and
Yeah. Yeah.
but then again, across every other project and crypto Twitter conversation. So it's always about, of course, bringing that value back along with, the token that we'll be launching, and making that reality finally. Now that we've laid the groundwork, we have the platforms, and sure, we're going to be optimizing the user experience, or, apps, and actually we're going to be relaunching our visual identity and brand and website over the coming couple of weeks to address a better message, especially for new folks that may be seeing us from the Solana ecosystem. As we get closer to the token launch, uh, and ultimately to provide that better narrative of who we are, and why you should be excited. But there's always going to be lots to do, but we're finally getting to that stage where the network itself is complete, and it's mostly about strategies, network expansion, improvements to the utility of both the token and the data that we capture, even for everyday participants. So that's where it gets fun.
Yeah.
To date, it's been a bit of a slog, but looking ahead, I think that's where we really truly get to create value.
That's huge. I think that's so important to get everything right before you have to deal with launching the token and fully rebranding and everything. I think that that's the right way to do it, is to really like hone in and get it right. Even though I'm sure a bunch of people waiting, a couple months in crypto is like a lifetime. So, so that probably hard to do that, but I completely agree. I mean, once you're ready and you launch and you have everything that's fully set up, like, as far as the process for me to actually buying the sensor, it was really easy.
Nice.
Everything went really well. I think someone from the team even reached out to me, so it was awesome. Um, but yeah, I mean, the experience was great, and it sounds like you guys are building a lot to make this just like a great platform. So I'm super excited.
No, great to hear that everything was smooth, and lots more coming. Again, and we didn't even talk at all about the mobile app that we have, because of course there's
Oh
the
yeah,
the onboarding app, but there's also Ambigo, which
there we
started
go.
as a bit of an experiment at the end of August, but now we have 44,000 users on there, having performed over 800,000 check-ins. And so it's starting to get a bit exponential growth there, 90% month to month growth, across those
Wow.
check-ins, which is really exciting. But, we're also then now thinking, how do we make that more valuable for the participants and for the data that we capture today? And so that's also going to take a whole, new life on its own, because as much as over time we want to integrate that into a single app with the onboarding app and whatnot. But this opportunity to create more of a kind of general observations, app that helps us combine that with the real world data that our sensors are capturing, and that you'll be able to query about, what are the observed conditions by folks on the ground that are, in this hex right now, or that were there 5 minutes ago or an hour ago, to kind of give a sense of how they feel there, how the weather is, real time, and ultimately whether you may need to wear a sweater or a jacket, or if it's raining hard, if it's dirty, and all sorts of other conditions that I think will be getting a lot more folks on board. Of course, they'll be rewarded for that participation, and over time create that funnel for sensor ownership. So that's another piece of the puzzle coming together.
Yeah. Okay. So for Ambigo, I was looking it up on the App Store. Do we need to go to the website to download that?
So it's actually
That's,
today, it's a simple web app. So it's a very simple
oh,
experience based on points of interest. So, restaurants and cafes and so on, that you basically have to be at to check in, and then
okay.
to answer a couple of survey questions about the ambience, so how's the noise, how's the light, and so on. Again, it was always meant to kind of evolve into something much bigger.
Yeah.
We got distracted by many other things like launching the network.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also grown to a significant amount of users. And so we have, some 50,000 participants, over 50,000 participants across our entire ecosystem. Of course, it will be great to turn all of those folks into sensor owners in the coming few weeks as we launch the new outdoor sensor. But today, it continues to grow very well, and we love for that to be more hexagon driven as opposed to just points of interest driven.
Yeah.
Of course, to also be able to do those check-ins, but to take it to the next level, and to report more on observed conditions rather than just answering a couple of questions that were initially, again, a bit of a test and a bit gimmicky, but now that we see how folks are using it and where we can drive that value to that early participation, it makes a lot more sense, and it'll be complementary to the data that our sensors capture.
Yeah. Oh, that's huge. Yeah. Imagine if just like 1% of those users combined over to buying sensors, right? Like that is massive. And, another thing about that is, a lot of times when you're like looking at vacation, like, oh, I want to go to Hawaii because it's 75 degrees and sunny there every day. But maybe with something like that, you could plug it in and be like, hey, where else is it 75 degrees and sunny, during this particular part of the year? And you guys would have the historical data to kind of look that up pretty easily, right?
Yeah. Also, it's
Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. I feel like there's so many things you can do once you have all that data, right? Like the use cases, like you don't necessarily know what they are, but you're going to have all that data. And I think that the fun, most interesting parts will come with like, all right, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to aggregate it? What can you actually make from it? And I'm sure a lot of companies will do that with the data, but I feel like there's cool stuff to do there.
And that's why, the AI agents, or becoming a data layer for AI agents, we'll see those use
Yeah.
cases come out that we didn't even think about. But the Ambigo, I guess we're trying to become a bit of a Waze for walking, right? It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
how do you, of course, while being rewarded for it, but how do you, say, oh, there's a cop here right now. Oh, the
Yeah.
floor, that, there's ice on the road, or that there is these conditions reported here, and so on. Because we are, at the end of the day, as humans, the best sensor out there. Sure, it
Yeah.
may be subjective, and it will differ, but you can, like, you go on Amazon today, people say, these things about this product, right?
Yeah.
So people say these things about this location right now,
Yeah.
and you can monitor it over time, and I think you make a great data set with what we have for outdoor measured conditions and indoor measured conditions. So
Yeah.
a bit of throwing a bit of human in there too.
Yeah. A really funny use case would be if you guys integrated with the Moonwalk app. Have you heard of
Yeah,
Moonwalk at
yeah,
all?
yeah.
Yeah, where you go out, you walk, have like competitions. I mean, everybody on that app is outside walking, for an hour a day or so. have them check in once or twice while they're walking, and provide what they're seeing and the temperature and
That's right. You
everything.
may as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds
It
good.
keeps
That's cool.
everybody fitter too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, it does. I've been doing it. It's harder to get 10,000 steps a day than you think,
Yeah.
but yeah, do it. Sounds good. So we've got a bunch of changes coming to the website. We've got the outdoor sensor coming soon. We've got a token coming soon. Is it like Q1, Q2
End
type
of this
thing,
month.
or end of this month? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, so
Stay
when
tuned.
token is answered. Yeah. End of this month. Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, well, I'm really excited about this. Anything else that we need to know about what you guys are doing at Ambient? I mean, it sounds great so far. I'm excited. I'm excited for this outdoor one. I want to see that one too.
No, and here I'll show you real quick because I know that this is going to be a voice podcast, but this is the device. It's going to be $190, base
Yes.
price, and it's small. It's great.
Yeah.
You can put it anywhere quite easily, and it gets great data. And the manufacturer is fantastic. Really, really great team there. It's going to have a nice little Ambient logo there on as well, and you'll start to see them pop up all around you. So. Stay
Yeah. I can't
tuned
wait.
for when that's available and closer to G itself. So later this month.
Okay. Okay.
That's the goal. But otherwise, we're I think we're working with a number of top brands in the space, and when they start to get published, that's going to be really exciting because we're finalizing agreements with some of the top brands that have hundreds of millions of monthly users across their base. With fintech players where we're their first Web3 project customer, that will drive also significant, relationships with one of the largest media brands in the space with over 2 million Twitter followers. And of course, on the security side, we have Halburn as our partner that we've been working closely with. But the goal is to work with top trusted brands in the space to get the word out as much as possible about what we're doing and to get as many folks involved because at the end of the day, it impacts us all. And so there is an opportunity for us to do something about it. So excited to spread the word with you, Thomas.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm very excited, and I feel like with the lowering of some regulations, what a time to be,
Yes.
expanding everywhere, right? I feel like everybody's a lot more open to crypto companies actually, being out in the world, and it's no longer a gray area. So I think that, the lighter regulations combined with, the amazing data that you're able to give to everybody. I'm really excited personally to receive mine and see how it goes. But I'm also really excited to just see where you guys take this, right? I see a ton of potential here. It's awesome.
Yeah. No, thanks. Thanks for the support. And look forward to coming back and tell you more once we've launched everything that we have on the plate for the year.
Yeah, yeah, 100% welcome to come back on whenever. Let me know. Definitely want to hear more about how it's going in a couple months because this is exciting.
Awesome. Well, thank
All
you,
right.
Thomas, and thanks everyone for listening in.
Yeah, thank you so much, Luca. Really appreciate it.
Cheers.
All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Solana Weekly. Once again, this is Thomas Bahamas, and I have one final ask for you guys. If you could, please subscribe on whatever player you're listening to. You could leave a review. That would be amazing. If you want to shill me your bags, work for them. But yeah, really appreciate it. And as always, this is not financial advice, but I want you guys to accelerate, move forward, and let's get this bag. I'll catch you guys next week.